All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the April Accelerating the Accelerators community call. And just as sort of a little bit of background about these calls, we've been hosting these calls since the very beginning of conveners.org, and they're actually open calls. So they're for members and non-members, but this is sort of our initiative to help curate and cultivate collaborations and create space for catalytic impact and interactions in the acceleration space. And by accelerator, we mean entrepreneur support organizations. So it can be accelerator, incubator, fellowship, competition, you name it, any sort of organization that is dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and specifically social entrepreneurs and create social and or environmental impact. This is the call for you all. And so what we've done this year is we've shifted these calls from an hour to half an hour. Just because we're trying to invite more of our accelerator community to join as members, and we have a member call once a month already that's an hour long. And so these calls are dedicated this year with a specific lens of community building activities. And so we want you all to get to know one another, but also get to know activities that you can go and use with your own teams or use with your entrepreneur cohorts, however you see the best use for these activities. And so every month, the second Thursday of every month at 8 a.m. Pacific, we have these calls for half an hour to learn a different tool. And so today we're talking about commonalities, and these are all found in our facilitation encyclopedia, which is on our website. You can only see the details if you're a member, so you need to be logged in with your member profile. But you can see sort of the cards of all of our facilitation encyclopedia activities, even if you're not a member. And commonalities is one of my favorite. It's sort of those quick and dirty exercises if you only have like 5 minutes and you really want to just get people to connect fast. This is the activity, and you can make it competitive. You can offer prizes. And I think especially for entrepreneurs, it gets them out of that sort of pitch mentality of constantly just talking about themselves, their organization and their teams, because this is like finding commonalities of any part of your life with another person. And so what we're going to do, since we do have a pair, is I'm going to put you guys into a breakout room really quickly, or actually we can do it in this space so that we can record the interaction, if you don't mind being my sort of guinea pigs for everyone else who wasn't able to join today. But so I'm going to have Eileen and Elizabeth model this for us after I explain it. But basically I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'll keep time. And your goal is to find as many things in common as you have in those 2 minutes. And so it can be, you can do it in a variety of different ways by asking different questions or just sharing things about one another. And just one caveat to this activity is if you would like it to be more just bringing people together and learning about one another and you have more time, you can adjust the time. But to make it sort of more competitive, you shorten the time frame. But we've done this as long as 5 minutes. I find that 5 minutes in a pair is plenty of time to find a lot of things in common. And then usually the pairs go off into breakout rooms, and then we come back to the main room and you share what were the most surprising things that you found in common with one another. So you don't have to share everything unless it's a competition, and then you kind of list off or list the number of things you found in common. And this is both professionally and personally. So I'm going to start the timer here in a second. And Eileen, did you?
Oh, yeah, I think I would be more comfortable in a room than.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too.
I was just like, I don't know what I would. Then I can see how like it would be really more like a safer space in a room or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. That's while I was explaining it, I was like, no, we're going to do it in rooms anyway. So, and that's how the activity is supposed to be. So I'm going to put you guys in a room, and in about 2 minutes, I'll give you a little bit extra just so you can introduce yourselves. Okay. And then I'll bring you back and we can share what were the most surprising things that came up. And if you want to, just because it's the 4 of us, we can make it a little bit longer time frame, just so it's a little more relaxed, because there's no winner or loser here, because there's only one pair. So, and the goal really is for you two to connect and get to know one another. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes in your rooms. And I'm going to assign manually because I want to put you guys in a room together. Okay. Okay. Perfect. So you go, just in case you haven't used breakout rooms before, you don't have to do anything. I'll put you in the rooms and then bring you back after 5 minutes, and we'll share what was most surprising. And then I have a couple of other connecting questions, just so you guys, we can really use the time to get to know one another. All right. Thank you both. Welcome back.
Hello.
How was the activity for you both? What was surprising?
I think I thought it was really fun. I can totally see how you could get competitive and like, so Elizabeth gave me, it was like, should we just, blurt out all these facts and things and just kind of try to see as many as we can get, or should we just have a conversation? So we decided to have a conversation, but Elizabeth, I think you find so many more if you're just rapidly sharing all sorts of information and things like that. But it's kind of it would be interesting to see like what strategies people took to win.
Yeah, I would be interested to see how this does play out with entrepreneurs. I think Eileen and I both kind of lean more on like kind of the relationship building. So like, oh, let's find one fact and get the background and like, how did you get there? So like we had a really lovely conversation and we're like, wait, but how many commonalities do we have? So it's I think what's surprising is, you could get distracted from kind of the objective. But I think that's okay. Like that's perfectly fine because the point is to make a connection from the activity. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would say like the facilitator caveat here is it totally depends on how you set it up. And unfortunately today we only have the one pair, you two. So when you have a lot more pairs, I think it's a lot more dynamic and you can share a lot more things that came out of the conversations. And it does totally depend on how you set up those expectations for what to get out of the activity. So either you set it up as commonalities, we're going to use this time and space to really connect and find things that we have in common. And that's when I would say make the time longer. So 5 minutes or even if you think if you guys needed more time, you can always make it more time. I think less than 10 minutes probably, because it can be a long time for some people if there's no spark and connection. It can just be like a really awkward 5 minutes too. So I do think 5 minutes is a sweet spot for most people, with some people needing less and some people needing more. But if you do want to create it as like a fun, okay, we have only 5 minutes for the whole activity, then you do 2 minutes and really like do make it seem like a competition with some sort of prize at the end, whether it's, just a superficial thing or a physical prize. Because some people have actually done this even virtually. You have it be a competition and then you have an actual prize that you can mail to that team or that person. That's something like really simple, like a gift card or something. And I think for entrepreneurs, what I've seen is they do really like that competition, especially if you feel like there's low energy or you want to really break the ice quickly when you're entering into like right before a session or right after a really long session to get the energy moving. It's really fun to just do a quick, all right, 2 minutes competition, let's go, here's the prize, or even just whoever, because entrepreneurs, I think, don't even need necessarily a prize. They just want to compete and win sometimes, which is super fun. And so it can be just like a fun activity that brings us back to sort of that childlike spark of just playfulness and playing around. And I think the things that you share that are most surprising can be really hilarious sometimes. Like we did this with, actually we did this during a member call as a quick like community competition a couple of months ago, I believe. And people were just sharing things like, yeah, we both love skydiving. And that was, I have no idea how we got to that point, but we shared that. Or another person was like, that's like a commonality that I love eating and my partner loves cleaning. And so we're perfect for each other, like things that are really like actually opposites that aren't commonalities. Just, it really helps break the ice and makes people laugh and is really, I don't know, it's a fun, quick activity. So any questions about, how to facilitate this or how you might use it with your own teams or your own cohorts in the work that you do?
No, oh, go ahead.
I like how you positioned it as kind of like changing the energy in the room. We actually have when we're in person, a 3-day boot camp. So just being with a group for that long, it can get really draining. Right now, because it's virtual, it's 3 weeks. So it's part self-paced, part Zoom, part, homework. But I think even in those ways, it's good to kind of change the energy when you're with a group for a substantial amount of time, and bring things that are a little bit lighter. Always helps change the energy too.
Yeah. Eileen, you wanted to say something?
Oh yeah, I think it's nice I agree with the energizer part, and I think you could do it multiple times, like especially because it just gets people connected, right? The more people we get to know at conferences and even online, it's good. So I love it. I think it's a great exercise.
Awesome. And then I will say too, one thing that I've used with a class that I teach here in Guatemala, actually on social entrepreneurship, but with the students, when we can go back to in person, which is hopefully going to be soon, with this, if you want to make it a super fun, super competitive activity, you start everyone off in pairs. And then once they find things in common, they have to go find another 2 people that have found things in common. So you create a group of 4, and then you have to find, 4 things that the whole group has, or 3 things that the whole group has in common. And then those 2 find another 2 to have 6. And then once those 6 have found a thing in common, they all, clap and cheer, and they're sort of the winning team. But the goal is to basically find as many people as you can to make the group bigger and bigger. And if you can, depending on how many people, obviously, because if you have 20 people, it's not going to work. So if you have a larger group, then I would say larger than 8 to 10 people, keep the max group size smaller. So build up to maybe 6 people total. But if you have a smaller group, try and do the whole group. And the competition is to see how quickly everyone can find at least one thing in common, because once you get to that biggest group, it's just one thing that everyone has in common, and you time them to see how fast they can do it. And that's super fun, especially I would say because I've only used it with students, but they had a wonderful time with that. And it has to be, and it can't be obvious things, because when you're in person and even virtual, it's like, oh, we both have brown hair. It's like, no, that doesn't count. So you have to find things that you can't physically see or tell by looking at that other person. That you have in common. So that is another caveat too, for the commonalities competition, if you do it as a competition. So perfect. We have about 7 more minutes of our time, and I would really just love to use the rest of this time really quickly to just have it be a connection call, and any sort of questions or challenges that you all are dealing with currently. I know it's only 7 minutes, but if you have something top of mind, challenge that you'd like to position to the group, I'd love to hear it, and we can kind of brainstorm on it as well. And if we run out of time, we can also continue this conversation, or you 2 can also connect offline, and I can do an email introduction for you both. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
I would love to hear from everyone, actually. So as the summer's coming, and of course things are opening up and vaccines here anyway, it seems people are going to want to spend less time on Zoom, but of course we have all these sessions online scheduled. So how are you thinking about that addressing? Are you guys adjusting anything like the length of sessions as we're kind of thinking about the next 6 months that we're pretty much locked into Zoom?
That's a great question. I don't know, Elizabeth, if you want to go first for that, because we're all online. So
yeah, I think for the sake of being able to plan, it was just easier to say we're going to be virtual, and maybe in the fall, winter, we'll consider something blended. So I just think it's the nature of things. I will say we're incredibly cognizant of how long we make things. And that's kind of my question of building an interactivity into sessions that are 45 or an hour when there's a presentation component is really challenging, but we don't really want to keep people online for longer than an hour. That's really hard. I think for us, when we do think about time commitment, we also want to make sure that folks are actually going to show up. So anything that's longer than an hour for us, there's usually a fee or that buy-in, whether it's, a $10 buy-in for what we're doing. But if we really need people there, it really needs to be interactive. That's how we're making sure that people show up to do that. Otherwise, we're trying to keep things short and sweet and free wherever possible. The other thing is we also have leaned into just providing the recordings. People will watch them when they want to watch them if they don't want to be with us. And it's just also being very transparent with our funders of Zoom fatigue is real. They want the content, which is why they're registering for it. And we'll get whoever we can in the room. I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, Eileen, so we have an event coming up, which I believe you all have gotten communications about, at least to save the date, or maybe not, Elizabeth, because you guys just joined as members, but it's called Accelerating the Accelerators. It's a convening, and the theme this year is Thriving Forward. And so we've done this event actually in partnership with Miller Center for Social Entrepreneurship out of Santa Clara University, as well as SOCAP. And it's usually in person the day before the SOCAP conference begins in San Francisco, because that's where we saw a lot of the accelerator community was already going to SOCAP. So we thought, oh, if you're already going to this, how can we capitalize on this moment and get you all in the same room just as accelerators to do working group sessions, ideation groups, informational sessions, affinity grouping, things like that, to then just create the space for accelerator programs from all over the world to gather and get together. And so last year, because of COVID, we didn't do the in-person, and we didn't have time to pivot to virtual. And this year, for the very first time, we're doing it basically on our own with partners, but virtually in August. And it will be August 10th through 12th. And one of the things we did struggle with was, how do we do what would be a one day, all day, like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. In-person convening? How do we do this virtually in a way that's really where our focus is always on being highly engaging, highly participatory, like no panels, unless it's like an Ignite talk where it's super quick, and then you do discussion groups from that panel. And how do we also capitalize, on gathering all of these people from around the world? And do we want to do this in person again, or do we want to keep it virtual? Because also there is, for us, that sort of accessibility question, especially since we are a global community and we want to make sure that there's no sort of barrier to accessing our convenings and our online gatherings that we create. So what we've done is we're doing 4-hour blocks, but a 1-hour block in the middle, which is an interactive lunch. And so people can either take that lunch and totally go off screen if they need a break, or we'll be doing you can do a yoga class, or you can do a wellness session, or you can do we can all eat lunch together and just have sort of that experience of going to have lunch with your colleagues when you're at an in-person convening. And the rest of the session blocks will be in the mornings affinity group. So every day will be different because every day has a different focus. And so the first day is Thriving Founders. So how do we really support our entrepreneurs in both wellness, financial sustainability, measuring their impact, accountability, et cetera, storytelling. The second day will be Thriving Organizations. So how do we support the organizations themselves, their teams, turnover rates, storytelling, impact measurement, financial sustainability, selecting their cohorts, creating a mentorship network for their entrepreneurs, all of those aspects. And then the third day is Thriving Ecosystem. So as ecosystems of support in general, how do we bring more funding into the space? How do we bring more research and case studies and that storytelling aspect and measuring the impact of what's happening in the ecosystem? How do we do that better? And we'll be having happy hours. We'll be having different sessions, hopefully one with impact investors, one with philanthropic funders as well, because as accelerators, you get funding from multiple sources, obviously. So we want to make sure we get both sides of that. But having multiple sessions during the same hours, but probably not more than 3 or 4, because I find if you pack it too much, people, one, get overwhelmed, and you want to go to the different sessions, right? And recording all of them so that we have that library so all attendees can actually watch the different sessions. But since they're highly interactive, I don't think we'll probably do more than 3 per hour, if that even, depending on what we want to actually showcase. Just because yes, we do want to make sure we maximize the content, but we also want to make sure that people don't feel like they're missing out on anything either. And all of the content is going to be facilitated and curated by accelerators and support organizations of accelerators. So it's very much like by accelerators for accelerators. And again, by accelerators, they're entrepreneur support organizations. So it's going to be a really awesome global event. And we've also shifted the timing. So Monday and Thursday, it's going to be earlier in the day, and then Wednesday it'll be later in the day to try and like capture, because when you're dealing with multiple time zones, it's always an issue to get everyone involved. But trying to really cover all the time zones around the globe. So no one has to be like there at 1 or 2 in the morning, their time. So, yeah.
I like that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I hope you guys can join, because for members, it's half off. So, and I can, if you still want the early bird price, I think I can convince our team to give you the early bird price if you want that. So let me know. It's all on our website, and our website is linked to the Eventbrite page for the event as well. So you can see more information there, but that's kind of how we're working with virtual right now. So we'll see. But yeah, that is our time for today. I want to really honor your time, because I know everyone has a busy schedule, and thank you both for investing the time today to join us for these calls. And I hope to see you on the member call next week, where we're going to be actually seeing a presentation by JB Media as part of their Shift conference. So it's going to be about digital storytelling and like maximizing how do you really amplify the story through social media channels of your brand, basically building your brand. So I think it's going to be really a really interesting, if different, format for our member call. But hope to see you guys both there.
Great. Thanks. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.